Now, time for our final reading. Joseph Somoza was born in Spain and grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and Chicago. After teaching college in Texas and Puerto Rico, he received an MFA in poetry from the University of Iowa in 1973 and moved to New Mexico the same year. He taught creative writing and literature at New Mexico State University for 22 years and was poetry editor of Puerto de Sol and a founder and poetry editor of Sin Fronteras Journal. He has published 5 pamphlets and 5 full books of poetry, most recently As Far As I Know, which is on the table back there. He has done readings of his poetry in venues throughout the United States and Mexico, and has had his poems in over 200 magazines, journals, and anthologies. He took early retirement from teaching and editing to have more time for writing mornings in his backyard and taking part in the poetry community in Las Cruces, New Mexico, where he lives with his wife, Jill, a painter. They have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Somoza.
Thank you for coming, and thanks to Kyle and Ash for agreeing to read with me. And thanks to Malvern for hosting this. Nice bookstore, great neighborhood. So 21 years ago, I took early retirement from college teaching and basically retreated to my backyard. I had always loved Walden. This had always been my favorite book, but instead of a pond, I had a backyard. So I figured my backyard was this very good place to come every morning and contemplate and observe. And I would go every morning, essentially, unless it was raining or something, or we were out of town. And just without any plan in mind, just take a notebook and see if, after thinking about stuff for a while, some words would appear on the page, and if so, just follow where the words would take me. And then I would, of course, try to make that into a poem. So that's what I've been doing the last 21 years. This latest book, as far as I know, takes poems from maybe the last 6 years. I'll start out with the first one in the book, which has a perfect opening line. How about if I just start? Makeshift. How about if I just start? Mosquito spray perfume on my hands. The dog next door making demands. September partly cloudy for some unseasonable reason, although I'll take it, as Stud Sturkle would advise when he was alive and on live radio. But let's not dwell sentimentally on the past or passing, as my brain likes to do when put on automatic. My sinuses are stopped, throat raw, mind somewhat spacey, but I do feel a breeze rubbing my face and enjoy watching the swaying rows of tiny locust leaves draped over the cinder blocks that cement my enclosure, my space and angle on the world I hear driving by, just past the house, quietly now, but to pick up at lunchtime. As for me, there's nothing I have to do, nowhere to go. Right here was always the best place anyway, and I've arrived. Work tools in hand or head, notebook and pen, eyes, memory, words. Free verse. I let the day go, it was so beautiful. I couldn't stand tying it down with lines that would wrap it in place. So I went out shopping and came back to find the day sailing with its white streaks and its birds doing what birds do, wherever they disappear to go do it. The sheets had dried on the line. The chair in back was waiting. December's leaves continued to color the ground. They don't seem to mind not being raked until spring. And who am I to try to convince them? Who am I to disrupt things as they are? A lot of these poems in the first part of the book deal with the writing itself in one way or other. The private lives of words. I don't want to sound public. I don't want even to pretend to some importance. So why set the words down, preserving them? For others? Clarifying them for myself? Already patterns start to form. The words, once written down, call to other words. It's so lonely on the long blank page. So isolated, living inside someone's head, behind eyes that are forever looking at the surfaces of things from their secure outpost, wondering how it would be inside a locust tree, for instance, or a hummingbird, even inside that old rocking chair sitting in the living room since it was bought from Mary, the ex-neighbor, at a yard sale. And it stayed against the wall, overshadowed by the piano, hardly noticed beside the shelves of multicolored novels that probably communed with each other nights. Hemingway continuing his belligerence with Fitzgerald. De Maupassant chatting with Flaubert. You get some words together and you never hear the end of it. And that's pretty much the way my poems, I want to get my poems to go. Just putting words down and see where they lead to other words. Accumulus. This is a made-up word. Accumulate and cumulus cloud. Accumulus. It's overcast this morning. A great pall cast over what should be a new day's brightness. Who says it should be? Who determines what a day will bring? A truck backing up beeps its warning. An old aluminum pan leans against the cinder blocks. If I wait a while, the word I'm searching for might float up to my consciousness. You could call the mind a pool. You could say clouds are prospects. The poem I might have written might have branched off somewhere else. Now a dead branch on a language tree, or like my father's aunt who never married. We make too much of things. We ourselves are little things. Consider the tiny ant you'll step on walking back into the house. Consider India, people praying along the Ganges for the souls floating upward from bodies being burnt. The Indian is an ancient culture. It makes too much of us. It's cluttered like my mother-in-law's study when she died. Think the barren Arizona desert along your drive to California. Think the impoverished Tarahumara woman begging on a stoop in Juarez. Think of flowers that sprout whether or not the rain arrives on schedule. The mind will think its thoughts regardless, and the hand will want to write them down. When I'm in the house, I always put on either Ravel or Satie because they're very they create an aura, like a rich aura around you, but they don't really direct you the way like Beethoven or Mozart or Bach would do. They just let you be free, but within a rich aura of music. This is Satie, Settee. A pencil rolls off the coffee table onto the rug. Except for the piano music, there's only me and a milky sky outside. A winter storm is brewing, and I'm glad inside this house containing favorite things, my favorite other, and space enough to walk around. Even in the dark, stumbling, we find our way, or in the kitchen by light of the refrigerator, sustained by a bowl of soup, a favorite book. here's quite different. Evolution. Evolution. As I get older, the face staring at me in the mirror turns more and more into my father's. When he was alive, I didn't know or care for him much. He wasn't interested in who I was or might become. He went to work, came home, shuffled upstairs to his playroom in the attic. A pathologist, he taught me respect for learning and irony. He liked history, world travel, playing chess, and young pretty women he flirted with and patronized. I grew up as the protector of my mother. After I had children of my own, my father died, and my dislike for him turned to pity. Now that I'm turning the age my father never got to be, his face watches me from the mirror. I hope and sympathy, a trait seldom revealed on that face while he was living. To be alive. If I haven't been to Paris or Rome, is how I started yesterday. And I start again today, this cold morning in the backyard, the black cat lying squarely in the sun. In the biography I'm reading, Allen Ginsberg is in Paris, has been to Rome, and in the actual world outside the book is dead, has been dead for years. A new crop of people have been born and are growing in a world without Allen Ginsberg. He would never have believed it. But of course, to not believe it, he would have to be alive, or even to believe it, or to change his mind. To be alive is to be able to be in Rome or Paris and be reading a biography of Allen Ginsberg, living at the Beat Hotel in Paris. Saturday nights. Pretty black and white hand-sized City Lights paperbacks I love to hold and look at. I picked one up at Coa's used bookstore yesterday. Ginsberg's Kaddish and Other Poems, 1958-1960, and was transported back 50 years, Chicago. Just a teenager walking with pal Tony to the Uptown, hoping to pick up some girls after the show. Though how we'd carry them if we actually picked them up, having no car, wasn't clear. Poor in means, but footloose on the street, with hands in pockets, talking up our lives so they resembled what we had in mind. Poets even then, though not presumptuous enough to call ourselves that, nor so self-aware as to realize what we were saying as we talked while walking to the corner grill on Lawrence for fries and cokes, where the girls were everywhere in pairs or bunches. But we, not prepared to act definitively, in no position to make an offer. Our shyness and bewilderment over what must have seemed an infinite potential, resulting once again in inertia. Snap. For a moment we stopped after breakfast and just looked out the back door. Nothing happened. No wind in the locust tree, the cat lying on the welcome mat, my teacup empty after my second cup of tea. You didn't say anything, my hand resting on my cloth napkin. It was as if someone had come by with a camera and snapped a moment of our life. There, we went, we saw, we had a lot of fun. We lived a lot, or seemed to fill the moments with more awareness of each moment as it passed. On a city sidewalk often, Every moment wearing nothing special or predictable. No two the same attitudes or steps we noticed looking up. The sky was there somewhere, probably where it always was. We didn't care if she or I were the same people we had known before. So much passing by made us less aware of self, more conscious of each moment going, so that another moment could come up to us, to be noticed. Dream. At 1725 Hamill Drive in Las Cruces, there's a door with my name on it. I turn the key in the dark, and when my eyes have adjusted, see the spines of paperbacks in a bookcase. I walk up to Esther Waters and fondle her leaves, smelling of mold and old age. Pass by the couch and around the partition to where the refrigerator hums. It lights up when I open it. Hulking boughs quivering slightly gleam through the glass panels of the back door. Whether any cats or which generation of them will appear if I unbolt the door to the yard, I can't surmise, any more than I know how I got here, from where, why Jill isn't with me, and who this person is that still goes by my name. So this book starts out with poems that consider the writing process a lot. End up with a lot of dark poems. The last section is called From the Dark, and it's poems about getting old and fearing death. And I'll finish with a couple more here. After Ma died, the sky is back, insistent with its overcast, but soothing in its milkiness, under which doves come and go like small airplanes, looking for their ports. At breakfast, I played Mozart's spinet pieces, purely Mozart, sad and happy. In the dictionary, we looked up spinet, which surprisingly has one N only. Also clavichord, harpsichord, cembalo, pretty words from places that the music brings you like a conversation to make the room glow. The kind of place, I thought, where Ma might be, if she's still any place. And I'll finish up with two poems here. Death Dream has a little epigraph from Paul Celan. Black milk at daybreak. A little image from his poem. I can't think of the title of the poem. Great poem. Death Dream. The pages I've written were of non-writing, volumes of pages. And as I walked through the dark woods I knew would lead to the cafe where I could read my non-words, I saw that death was the subject. And I woke up and went to the bookshelf and took down the death book to serve as my guide. And I'll finish up with From the Dark, also based on another dream. I searched along drafty stairways and inside immense classrooms in the dilapidated schoolroom building where visitors experimented with paintings of their own design. But nowhere did I find you. And when finally you appeared and I asked you to sit next to me on the stairs, your eyes could hardly see me, looking so fixed and far away. This morning, returning to the waking world, you in your studio after breakfast, I looking out the window from the couch. It's overcast, a chance of rain. Spring winds rattle the junipers and the old toothless wind chimes hanging on the porch. But there's a winter mood in